All right. Oh, and then there's
All right.
going live. You're live. Hey. Hi everybody. We're a few minutes past. We're down a streamer tonight. Emmett Furey is having trouble with Skype. If at some point he does emerge, we will indeed get this going on. But right now there's just the three of us. Above me is Anthony Robinson of No Proscenium.
Hello and good evening. Rising moons.
To the right of your screen, Anthony. Anthony's left. You know what I'm trying to say. No, just right next to you. There you go. We've got Jeff Heimbuch of Horrorbuzz. Wow, I messed that up because Emmett was like,
I would take Horror Bros. That would be kind of hilarious.
Horror Bros.
Yeah, let's go with
Horror Bros. All right. Well, you know,
Thank
if you ever run off on your own, Emmett is going to try the web version, so hopefully he'll arrive at some point. Technology, you gotta love it. Oh, hey, Emmett seems to be inside, so we'll do. There's Emmett. Hey, great. Okay, so what's going to happen here is we're in process. I'm going to add Emmett. So Emmett, can you talk actually? Okay,
yes,
fantastic.
hello.
We can hear
Hey,
Emmett.
he's here.
We're gonna go ahead and add you to the setup because we can do this kind of live. Everyone, you're gonna get a slight audio issue for about 3 seconds, and then little tiny Emmett arrives, and then zoop, and something like that. Yeah, and just oh wow, and everyone's things resized itself, and it's all dancing windows, ladies and gentlemen. So we're gonna pretend that none of that happened, and we're gonna kind of start over, even though we are in fact live. Some X number of minutes into the stream is when we go. All right, here we go. And now joining us from his library, Emmett Furey, Transmedia producer, who's worked on both Dungeons and Dragons Transmedia and on Niantic's Ingress. So hello.
Hey, everybody.
And then a giant Skype logo is just emerging from I've got like in the thing. Oh my god, this is just weird. Okay, whatever. Okay, trying to make this like not be weird, and it wants to be weird. Hi, everybody. We're 7 minutes in, and we've just been playing with technology because it is the year 2019, and in their infinite wisdom, Google canceled Hangouts on Air. I just want to point that out. Just really want to point that out. But that's not what we're here to talk about. No, that's just what we talk about every day of our blasted lives. No, tonight, this is Everything Else. This is the Everything Immersive live stream where we talk about everything else, all the pop culture stuff that we are completely devouring and into. And tonight, to no one's shock, we're talking Star Wars. Specifically, we're talking Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. This specifically the Transmedia, all the stories and novels, all the stories of it. I've got Black Spire here. Anthony, it's blurring out, so you gotta hold it a little closer. There's Galaxy's Edge: A Crash of Fate. You know what? No, it's still blurring out. It's still weird. Here's Galaxy's Edge: A Crash of Fate. And then also we've got Star Wars Myths and Fables. All of these books tell the story of Batuu, Black Spire Outpost, the theme park land that we've all been to. We've all read the stories. We were going to plan this, but we had all the technical difficulties. So the usual 15 minutes we spend before the show just being like, hey, so what are we going to talk about? We're just going to do that live for you. So it's a lot more like a No Pro podcast. I want to start with Jeff. Because Jeff, you read, this is Delilah Dawson's Black Spire, which tells the story of V. Marathi, who is the Resistance spy. She first appears in the novel Phasma, also by Delilah Dawson, which is an excellent novel that tells the backstory of everyone's favorite chrome-plated stormtrooper, who then dies in The Last Jedi, even though she had kind of no business being back. That's for another time. But Vi first showed up in that novel, and this is sort of a sequel to that novel, while also being the storyline for Batuu. But Jeff, you read this before you ever went to Black Spire Outpost. So I want to start with you, because you read the book before you saw the theme park.
So to me, I mean, I know everyone, I think everybody else in the world is going to see the theme park first before they read the book. But coming it from the opposite angle, having read about the land and all the characters in the land first, and then being able to actually step into the land was mind-blowing, quite honestly. I mean, I knew I was going to like it to begin with, but the fact that I had all this rich backstory that was created in the book by Dawson before I got to see it made me like fanboy. When I walked in, I was like, "Oh, that's the path where, that led to their base, and this is where this happened, and this is where this." So like it just made it more rich and real to me, as opposed to just being, a place in a theme park. Quite honestly.
So did it kind of give you more of a bit of a Hogwarts Hogmeade vibe then? Because one of the things about
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, I know one of the complaints coming out of Galaxy's Edge is that it's not from the classic, movies. Nobody really knows what it is. It's a new place. But to me, having read the book and then going to see it was exactly what, actually, that was a great way for you to describe it. That's how I'm going to describe it now. Definitely like Harry Potter and like walking into the world of a world that I have read about for a long time and then being able to experience it in real life.
Yeah. I mean, tonally, Anthony, I think we went together, like your first time, my second time, like it completely felt like Star Wars to us, but it is definitely like a kind of an alien space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is its own thing, and it is Star Wars. It's the spirit of Star Wars. It is the universe. It's a corner that a lot of people who haven't been to yet. So
now, Emmett, this is what you do for a living. You do transmedia. And that's how I know you. We've known each other for years now, like about eight years, longer. I don't know. It feels a large chunk of our lives, actually. I try not to think about how long I've been in Los Angeles, but like we've been friends for a while now. Some anniversaries will be coming up in not too long. You do transmedia for a living. How is this so far? And we're going to get into the stories, folks. But like I said, we're cracking in. How is this? I mean, Star Wars is already the franchise. It is the pole star by which so many transmedia attempts are made. And here's this brand new, hefty chunk of the galaxy that's just been made whole cloth. How's it holding up for you?
I mean, I'm just loving it. I personally prefer that it's a land or it's a planet that we don't know much about, honestly, because we get to learn about it. And we weren't in the original trilogy, so we wouldn't be there. But I am just very, very happy with I had sort of the reverse situation where I had been there and then I read that book. And I was like, oh, I've been there, and I've been there, and I've been there. And
yeah, like there starts to be a little bit of it is actually kind of weird because I'm starting to feel like after reading the book, and I just finished the book like 30 minutes ago. I was like, I gotta get at least one of these done. Like I got Myth and Fables done a while back, but I'm having read Myths and Fables, having started A Crash of Fate. Like there's specifically the Trilon Wishing Tree. All right. So there's this tree in the courtyard at Savi's workshop, and kind of between Black Spire and Crash of Fate, it sort of feels like a Trilon, like it is a Trilon Wishing Tree and not the Trilon Wishing Tree, although they use the definitive article both times, as opposed to just saying but in Crash of Fate, it feels like in the village that they're in at the start, like one of the characters passes a Trilon Wishing Tree, and the Trilon Wishing Tree actually at Galaxy's Edge is right in Savi's workshop's yard, and that's clearly where it is in the Black Spire novel. I had a kind of semi-religious experience with that tree the first time I was there, and I didn't know the name of the tree. I had forgotten the name of the tree. I was told the name of the tree and then promptly forgotten the name of the tree. But to see it be embedded, not just in here, but it also shows up in Myths and Fables, and that there are these elements. But the funny thing to me is like the reading the novel, I'm starting to feel like that Galaxy's Edge is the theme park version of Batuu and not the real one. And when I first went, I felt like Batuu was the Galaxy's Edge was the real Batuu and not which is, I will admit, a literally insane thing to say. But now I'm starting to be like, oh yeah, this is the condensed version, right? You know, like this is the one that, you know, fits on the map. Whereas the novel, you know, you're walking a lot longer to get to, say, the old ruins. Everything's been shrunk down, hit with a shrinking ray to fit into the theme park. So there's this weird little, it isn't quite. We were just there yesterday with Zay Amsbury, our former New York coordinator, and he described the effect of walking from Galaxy's Edge back into Disneyland as ontological vertigo, which we're adopting. And that's something that Anthony and I definitely felt. It isn't quite that. It isn't that sense of, you know, like what's not real, but I'm starting. This is weird. I'm starting to notice the stuff that's missing because of the books.
Sure.
And I think you're never going to get a perfect recreation of what's in the books and, you know, what's going on there. But I kind of hate you for saying that. Now I'm never going to be able to unsee that version of it. Like, oh no, this is the theme park version of this place that I read about in the books. So thanks a lot.
I mean,
sorry.
Yes, there's definitely some level of immersion that I know certain budget cuts at some point we've read about isn't there. But I've gotten out of it, I don't know, like 13 times.
Oh, whoa!
That's a lot already.
Yeah.
Beats me.
You know, a few of them were just going down to like buy some specific merch, like for like something where like I drove on the road longer than I was in the park. But you know, but like I've found that I have certainly gotten out of it more because I put more in. Like I show up pretty much in my sort of outfit every time, and you know, I just took a week or two ago. I took my parents and my brother for their first trip, and there were two different Weimaratis on, you know, one sort of tapped out, and both of them, you know, at this point, those particular two anyway, remember me from previous. So they both went out of their way to come over to me to talk to me. They'll when I'm just there like messing around on my data pad, one will just show up and be like, hey, we've got incoming. Then we'll do the back to back, like, okay, stormtroopers, go that way, I guess. And you know, it doesn't get much deeper than that. I've definitely like asked questions about deep lore from all this transmedia stuff, and you know, deeper than a lot of them know, which is fair. But you know, they answer in ways that make sense. You know, I asked Vi about Archex, which is Cardinal from you know, Black Spire and Phasma, and she was like, "Why'd you have to bring that up?" Which is like a fun way to be like, I want to talk too specific about this, but that seemed like a response that was appropriate given, you know, anyone who. Yeah,
if you know the curious. Yeah. And just so you know, we're going to try to not like overly spoil any of the books. But you know, something may slip. I am fresh from reading the novel, which is really solid. I mean, I would say like I think Phasma is the better book, like overall, but Delilah is on top of my favorite Star Wars writers right now.
For sure.
You know her. I think it's we got Christy Golden and of course the immortal Timothy Zahn, who are lucky enough to have writing Star Wars again, are all up there. Yeah, I mean it was not something. Sorry, Jeff, but it was not something I was seeking, right? But like I was not seeking to like feel what was missing, right? Like. But I'm definitely feeling the lack of aliens, right? Like this is something that there are all of two aliens in, and I mean, aliens is harsh, right? Non-human beings, non-human beings, right? Because like, what's an alien in a galactic civilization? So I'm missing the non-humans. And there are only two non-humans in all of BSO. They are not portrayed by actors. They are audio animatronic, and they're not necessarily where you would expect them to be. Oh, Emmett?
And Chewie.
Oh, and Chewie, right? Oh,
Chewie.
God.
But
Yeah,
yes, but I agree with it.
Wookiee. Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing. Like, I don't even count Chewie as he's a face character, like a princess. Like,
Yeah.
he's a Wookiee princess. Those don't know. But yeah, so there's 3 non-humans in all of BSO, and I mean, and let's be honest. Let's be clear here. I love this. I'm spending money I don't have. Like, the freelance money.
You and me both.
The freelance money goes into things that should be just paying down my car loan. And instead, I'm getting drinks at Oga's. But the fact that, like, we all know, particularly if you're reading this stuff, you know who Oga Gara is, but we don't see her. Not that I necessarily want to see a Blooptorian, but it starts to feel like there's that thing's not. I don't know. I'm talking a lot. Jump in, please, guys. Interrupt me.
We need shades of purple. It's like we need a purple and a green. Like, just paint somebody. I mean, literally, it's like let's go. Like hardcore, like dig in the back, like Star Wars did for the original Cantina. Just paint somebody's. Put a scar across somebody's face with war paint or something. It's like. I think that's the one big thing that's missing. We have a lot of the BSO residents, a lot of Batuuans, but we don't have the crossroads feel. I mean, unless we're supposed to be the aliens. I mean, that's the only thing that I can take away. Is, we are the non-natives to Batuu when you go and visit. So I think that, like you say, that's the one thing that's really missing. And so unless people are going to start, unless they allow us to wear Leku.
You're not getting me in Leku. You're not. They were talking yesterday, Anthony and Zay. They're like, "Oh, we'll get you some Leku." And one, that's a ride hazard right there. Okay, you could just get the Leku caught in some gears, so that's not going to happen. There was a woman walking around in a cape, and I'm like, they don't allow capes. Like, how was that happening? Okay, so there's that part of it. Let's talk about. Let's stay on Galaxy's Edge on Black Spire here for a second. This is the one we've all read, right? Mm-hmm. What do you guys think of the story? Because this is the story of Anthony's got to step out for a second, but this is the story. It leads right up pretty much to Rise of the Resistance, which is the next ride. So, Emmett, as someone who knew the land first, what's your take on the novel?
I really liked it. I really liked it.
Had you been reading a lot of Star Wars novels of late, or had been out of the loop?
I around the time of the sort of legends when the switch over to new canon, I was like, I'm gonna start over from scratch and I'll be able to keep up, and then I didn't. But theoretically, I started around then, but then it sort of went down for a bit, and then I've been all steam ahead since I went to Batuu the first time. Let's see. I'm super intrigued about the ancients. The mysterious people that were the sort of antecedents of Batuu, and there have been little mentions here and there about Force users. I mean, they're finding lots of like kyber crystals and pieces of lightsabers. So like, it seems to me that that something must have happened here, right?
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah, the scrapyards is interesting because like one of the settings in the, I mean, what's sort of fascinating to me is like they've got to find a way to excuse all of the elements that exist in Star Wars and put them on one planet, which is something that they've never bothered to do before. Like it's always been, oh, you get your water planet. I mean, Batuu clearly seems to be this like, what if the Grand Canyon was lush, right? Seems to be the aesthetic of it all. And there were once mighty trees there. But this, the ancients, like there's clearly once a civilization from before. I can't tell if the scrapyard stuff is like just ships get salvaged and hauled to Batuu and dropped off there, or if there was or if lots of ships crash. Like this has not been addressed, like why there's so much junk on the planet. And I don't know if there's a story there or if it's one of those just like, oh yeah, well, we're gonna have the scrap yard. It's like almost like a question of chicken and the egg. Like, what came first? The idea that, oh, you're building lightsabers out of salvage, and thus we need a whole storyline around salvage, or if there was this idea of like, oh yeah, this is kind of like a junk planet, right? Like all bits and bobs, and anything you might be able to find kind of lands there.
I feel like because the actual location of being on like the literal edge of the galaxy, so many things have just made their way there junk-wise, and they just have to be lounging around the planet, and people are just coming across them. At least that's the impression I got from it after reading the book, and I guess kind of needing an explanation for why actually there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely something to that idea that, like, it's at the edge of the galaxy, and it's kind of like sooner or later things just float on by, and the scraps and the dregs of what you might see and have and be. I'm monitoring the video, and like you guys get to watch the Skype, I get to watch the monitor video, and like Jeff's thing keeps on changing size, and suddenly he was like as big as the entire thing.
Wait, does it?
It does.
That's
No.
weird.
It's we've been trying to figure this out for weeks on how to make it work, and like the only one whose Windows stays stable is me, so whatever. Okay, so are there any? Oh, here's a good question. It helps when I have those. Are there any characters other than Vi from this that you wish would be able to show up?
The droid. What's the droid's name?
Oh, Pook.
Yeah, Pook.
Yeah.
Hands down, I want him somewhere in the land.
I mean, I love art checks, and Delilah was nice enough within the last 2 days. I tweeted like, "How do you pronounce this?" And she's like, "It's Chex, like the cereal." I'm like, "Thank you." But love art checks from both of those books. What else? Kind of want to see Harkos, but I don't think he was in the book. Harkos is, I think, a Nikto bounty hunter who has a message on the notice board in Oga's, and I think was originally supposed to be walking around. That was one of the cut things, I think. There was some like art in the 2015 Galactic Knights trading cards, if you've seen those. Yeah, they were giving out packs. There are 9 of them, and on the back is like a map, which is the map that you get in the Barnes & Noble version of Black Spire.
Right, which is a truly that's the one I've got, and you've got the concept art on one side, which I think everyone is definitely seen. I'll try and put this back here. You get the concept art on this side, which that's really well known. But here is this beautifully detailed map of Batuu, and what it is it's the funny thing is that it is very much everything's in the right place, but it's not like a realistic map, but it feels like it's a sketch that Vi has made about all the things that are important and where they who's where and where you might find folks. So
yeah. Those originally appeared on the back of the trading cards. You line up all 9 of them, but that was from 2015, so that was early days, I think. So,
oh wow,
which I think is why it's not 100% the way, And they went full on like 90s, like there are foil variants and Orabesh variants. I don't have all those. I'm never gonna have all those. That's fine. But
it'll just burn you forever. You'll just forever ever wish that you had them. No,
I mean a little. Let's see. Should we just run down so Thrawn alliances largely took place on Batuu?
That's right. In fact, the first time the planet shows up is on Thrawn alliances,
which was interesting because I wasn't I was aware that Galaxy's Edge was happening, but I wasn't plugged in enough when I read it to put 2 and 2 together. So, but as I recall, that was early enough that there aren't a lot of details. Like they go in a cantina, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be Oga's. Like I heard him say on a panel at Comic-Con that some of the blaster bolts in there are supposed to be left over from a gunfight that Anakin and Thrawn had with some people in the cantina in his book in the Clone War era.
Yeah. And that was one of the fun things about that book was that it took place both in the Clone War and in the Rebellion era. So, or as I guess technically now, both the Republic and the Rebellion ages. So we got little snippets of Batuu, and got this sense of it's a rough and tumble outpost where, you know, just about anything can happen. But it wasn't the final stop on those adventures. But then that idea that, like, Thrawn's there, Anakin and Vader's there, and I've always taken it as this idea that if they wanted to remix and, you know, switch things up, then, you know, all they got to do is just, you know, change what radar dish is on the Millennium Falcon, and then, you know, what type of stormtroopers are walking around, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's a whole new thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is like got to paint the X-wings and the Y-wings, and like the TIE Epsilon, you know, is the only real issue. But like change some flags, not too hard to skin.
I mean, I'll be really curious to see, because, you know, the ride in California, the Rise of Resistance doesn't open until January. That's post Rise of Skywalker, where you presume they're going to defeat the First Order. And so then it's a question of, like, are we, you know, does the park exist in a very specific point in time between these two films going forward, at least for a while? It seems like it almost has to, unless they find a way to end that movie where it's kind of up in the air what the situation is.
Yeah,
but it's also like Star Tours too. Like Star Tours seemingly exists in like two different time periods at the same time, depending on what like combination of events you get. So I don't know. They always kind of play, fast and loose with their time periods when it comes to when it actually is taking place in the park. And I feel like that's going to be more of the same here. It's just going to be a weird nebulous time after, The Force Awakens, but before Rise of Skywalker.
Well, I mean, when they released that timeline at D23 a couple of weeks ago, and Galaxy's Edge was firmly, pointed as being between TLJ and specifically it's, like Force Awakens and TLJ are like right next to each other, and then there's this kind of gap. It looks like a 2.5 years, almost 3 years gap to Rise of Skywalker, and Galaxy's Edge looks like it takes place like 6 months before Rise of Skywalker. It's somewhere in that zone, and there's we can probably put it into the chat log later, that GIF of the timeline. So, I mean, what was interesting to me is it feels like, because they've tied the Galaxy's Edge name to it, right? It's almost like how, you get Hyperspace Mountain is when Star Wars has taken over Space Mountain, right? And so the place is Batuu, it's Star Wars land, but if perchance we wind up in a different era at some point, you stop calling it Galaxy's Edge and you start calling it Star Wars, Tide of the Ancients or something like that. And suddenly it's like, oh, we've taken over, and like here's the re-theme, and set it to go. Because yeah, to your point, Emmett, like right now it's this weird thing we've talked about on the show before. The setting of that park is this moment in time between these two stories. Right. And I know that, like, I'm jealous of Florida that they're going to get Rise of Resistance just a few days before Rise of Skywalker.
Like, just a couple of days. It's
fine. But just a couple of days before Rise of Skywalker, so the people who first get on Rise there will be able to experience sort of the story in a linear fashion, and not be treating that ride as if it was a flashback, which is a fascinating thing to me, because so much of the kind of livable transmedia we've had over the years in Star Wars, be it something like the Oculus Rift game, or Dark Forces, or any of the video games, or most of the role playing games, they're taking place in a finished era. Right, in a time when the story is set, you know where things are going to wind up, and this is one where you don't, or at least those lucky people in Florida will not. But all of us will know already where things are going.
That's fair. That's actually a really good point, and I think by design the land is built to evolve beyond Rise of Skywalker. I mean, obviously Smuggler's Run it's very easy to make a new film and swap them in and out for, you know, something new just by the nature of it. And I'm very curious to see if that's going to be the case for Rise of the Resistance as well. I'm assuming not, just because of how ambitious it is and what they planned it to be. But, you know, at least a portion of the land can go into the future beyond, you know, the last Skywalker saga film.
Yeah.
If they want.
Or be cast backwards, right? I mean, I think one of the nice things, one of the good things is that so many of the First Order designs are variations on Imperial designs. That if they're just like, we're going to go classic trilogy, you're going to be mostly okay with that. You just got to change which sort of stormtrooper armor is, you know, walking around. Let's
swipe out the 50 heads of the First Order on the Rise of the Resistance for original classic stormtroopers, and you're fine.
Exactly. This is math. This is just math. Let's spin out. Anthony and Jeff, you guys have read A Crash of Fate. This is the YA novel by Zoraida Cordova, and break this one down for us here. Like, is this a Lost Stars situation? Is this like another, like, you know, YA romance in Star Wars thing? What do we got on our hands, Anthony?
It's not quite as epic as Lost Stars by any means. I mean, it's a very fixed time period, and the time period the book takes place, and I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, is very much like sometime nebulously after Black Spire takes place, and right before or right as where we're at in the park. So you know, it's, I mean, both books very much lead into what I'm hoping is going to be Rise of the Resistance. I mean, like, they both kind of like, here's what's going to happen. So you know, both books kind of like lead it into that. It's really funny because it's, you know, a lot of the newer books have been coming out, Star Wars books that are set in the current version of the universe are very much being put out as YA books, and it makes it really weird because, you know, there's YA sci-fi, and then there's Star Wars, which, you know, lends itself to, you know, lots of different genres. And this one is very much, it starts off as a hardcore Star Wars book and kind of, think, ends in a YA situation. So
interesting, because I mean, some of the best Star Wars novels in this cycle have been YA books. So Lost Stars, which is this epic romance that takes place over the entire course of the original trilogy, and leads you from well before A New Hope all the way to the Battle of Jakku itself, which was released part of the wind-up to TFA. And then Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which was a setup for The Last Jedi, and introduced Holdo as one of her childhood friends, and just some of these are I enjoy more than I'm enjoying the adult novels.
Adult stuff, yeah.
Because they're faster reads. Number one, there's always that, and a lot of them are getting the tone, I think, of Star Wars. Even more, like, there's a breeziness to the tone. There's a flow that's happening that some of the adult novels are kind of
fun.
They're fun. Yeah, I'm saying many complicated words to say they're fun. Anthony, you're absolutely
they're
right.
just fun.
Yeah.
Did you guys read Pirate's Price? Or there's a junior novel by Lou Anders that's all about Hondo and his various times he's interacted with the Falcon, leading up to how it ended up on in his shipping fleet, essentially. And then there's a one-shot comic called Star Wars Adventures Flight of the Falcon that's kind of a tag to that. And, you know, what's fun about the junior novel is it's all written first person as Hondo, which is actually kind of great. Like,
and is it in Hondo's voice?
Yes. Yeah, like he's, yeah.
Oh, wow. See, I've been kind of like the full-on junior novels and the Star Wars adventure comics, I've not been keeping up with. So just so those whom I know, and I'm kind of glad we're going here, because Star Wars as a merchandising empire is vast and complex. So yes, indeed, like this is what's considered, like, you know, your real Star Wars novels, or like your adult novels, you know, and indeed there's sequences in here that border on torture porn. which I was like, oh, this is like, ugh, geez, like, wait, knives, really? So some kind of intense scenes, scenes of implied intense violence. This is a YA, and then I would say, Myths and Fables is kind of sort of more like in a junior novel-ish kind of way. I mean, you can even just tell from the print's bigger, y'all. And it's short stories that feel like bedtime stories, that I initially thought were going to be written. I was very excited for this book, and I only feel it's okay. I thought this was going to be written in world, and I was really excited about the idea of in world written myths and fables, but it is clearly written with a full third person perspective. Like, there's an omniscient narrator who knows what's going on and isn't just trying to pass on like actual stuff. So, E for idea, or I for idea, but maybe a kind of a C for execution on that one for me. But then, there's the Marvel comics, and then I believe it's IDW publishes Star Wars Adventures, which are kind of younger kids comics, which I always thought were not canon, but maybe they are canon.
Yeah, I mean, these sorts seem to be. I haven't followed them at all either. I only found my way to these things I just mentioned because they were tie-ins, But also who ties in a lot is Bazine Natal, character from the one who called the First Order on our heroes in Takodana, the woman with the sort of black hoodie and
bodysuit.
Bodysuit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a message on the notice board, it's actually like a misconnection. Somebody saw her and was like, "Come find me." But just thought it was interesting because I think Delilah Dawson also wrote a short story about Bazine Natal.
Yeah, Delilah. That was maybe her first.
The
Perfect Weapon, which might have actually been her first. Might have been her first writing for our series here. I'm just gonna flip through and see if we've got a list of what she's written inside. Yeah, Star Wars, Phasma, and The Perfect Weapon, e-novella. And The Perfect Weapon indeed was, her first Star Wars assignment. And Delilah's, no doubt about it. Like, Delilah's a delightful writer, and a wonderful person to follow on Twitter as well.
The pure joy she's been posting, like the book being out and her being in Batuu taking pictures with the book. She like recreated the cover of the book while she was in Florida also. She is delightful. That is a great word for her. She's definitely delightful.
This is the Archex Convor, they have them at the toy shop, but it's, he whittles and stuff. Like,
That's
she
awesome.
tweeted once and she's like, "Oh my God, this thing from my book is one of the things." It's a little whistle.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
I didn't even notice that before. That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's cool.
But see, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, I always used to say this all the time. We got in our first conversations when everybody's like, well, what's transmedia? It's like Star Wars. Just look at Star Wars. It's like,
for sure.
like you want the whole story? Okay, great. Let me have 40 video games, 100 novels, a bunch of toys, and a bunch of other things, so you can learn the world. You get the whole story that way, and I'm glad that they've continued on that route. But this is just a whole nother level. That's just a good gimme from the novel. It's like, you wouldn't even think about that. I wouldn't even think about that as a tie-in. That's a fantastic tie-in.
Yeah.
From the book.
There's like, let me think, some of the high-level ones, like also on Oga's notice board. There's a thing of a Captain R. Keevan of the Halcyon CSL, which has been there since the beginning. We of course now know that the Halcyon is the hotel in Disney World, but that's the Chandrilan Star Line. So that's why I translated that and was like, I wonder what this means. Somebody else, if you look up in Black Spire Outfitters, there is a bolt of cloth that says "On hold for Gaia." And Gaia is one of the musicians. Like, if you look at the Oga's, Ula Shuka or something is one of Gaia's. Like, so there's these little Easter eggs throughout that, like, they're there for you to find. It's cool.
Yeah, they've woven this whole world together. One of the things sometimes people, particularly transmedia producers, so Emmett, I think it's good to have you in this one. Sometimes I know people on the transmedia side, like, they object to looking at the big franchises and sort of And granted, like the old battles over Transmedia are long done, but some of the question comes is this something that people who want to make interconnected stories of their own, right? So some of the creative folks who watch this show who don't necessarily have the resources of a Star Wars, like what are kind of the lessons people should take away for how this stuff is going? Because we get lost in these details and we love them, and there's a bit of a little convor in the egg, right? Like, oh, was that toy created and then she like wrote it in, or right, which is probably what it was like she was shown you get the sense that she was shown absolutely everything that was going to go into the park and was given the show Bible for the park and allowed to just run with it. Or are there, or is this something that can only really be pulled off when you're working at this absolute scale? What's the essential element? Like what's this thing that people are getting out of it?
I mean, it helps that it's Star Wars, obviously. Like it's the same way, you talk about like alternate reality games and stuff, and you talk about like why so serious, which is great, but then you're like, obviously the movie would have done super well even without it. And sometimes only properties that are that big can really carry off, have the budget to do something of that size.
But you definitely work in that interconnected storytelling space, right? I mean, that's part of the job is, so like, I mean, is there something just like, and maybe we can talk as like fans here, like what is that sense? What is it about this feeling of a larger world, right?
I mean, certainly what I'm reacting to in this place is like I said earlier, like, reading a Star Wars book and recognizing that I have sort of physically been in that space and I like can picture it and I can go back there and I can talk to the characters there about it. And, certainly like, I've never been like a cosplayer or like an Instagram person, but like I have photos that look like I'm in a Star Wars movie straight up, and that's hard to, I never thought I would get to see that, right? But yeah, it's a good question of like, those are some of the things that really resonate for me, certainly. And I just like, honestly, every little piece of new lore I find out about, Batuu is like how I remember feeling as a kid when I learned new stuff about Star Wars. And that has not been, I mean, I've been honestly in recent years, I've been relatively overall happy with the direction of Star Wars. But this just kind of pushed it to a new level for me,
Jeff, what about you? What are you getting out of all this at kind of that existential level?
I'm going to preface before what I say anything about this may seem blasphemous, you guys. So growing up, I thought the movies were okay, to be real honest with you. I had a bigger emotional attachment to like the books and the video games and the other outside stuff. So I think that's part of the reason why, to me, having read the book first and then going to Batuu had a much larger effect on me in that sense versus like, yeah, I grew up watching Star Wars and I thought they were okay, but like for whatever reason, having that connection with the book and other media more than anything else meant more to me than, it being, oh, this is from a Star Wars movie. I'm seeing Star Wars characters that I've seen on screen growing up. I don't know why that is for whatever reason, but I think it's a pretty incredible feeling that you can connect to that, whether it's a book or a movie or a video game or a comic book, and you can still get that same feeling of there is a whole world here that goes beyond what's on the surface level, and now I can just be part of it. And I love that aspect of it.
I got this sense for a while that you were like kind of avoiding going back to Disney as a whole, and then suddenly you.
Oh, I was.
And then suddenly you were on. Then suddenly you were on World, and I was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
Was it Friends, or was it like the books that motivated you to like?
It was a combination. Oh. People were in town for the D23 Expo, right, and the only way to see them was literally to go to Disneyland. I have not had a pass for Disneyland in 4.5 years now, and that's been by choice.
Yeah.
But
It's
also
not cheap.
reading.
It's not.
No, it's not cheap.
at all.
But even reading the book, I was like, as I'm reading it, going, "Holy crap! I want to go here. I want to see this thing." And then, like, as we got closer and closer to the expo and people were here, I'm like, I got to go do it. Like, there's no question about it now. I'll put money down for the Flex Pass. You know, I have friends coming in over the next couple of months. They're going to want to go. This is the time to do it. Why not? Let's make it happen.
And it seems to have lived up to what was in your head from the books.
Oh yeah, I fully plan like the next couple of times going back to Disneyland, not even caring about the rest of the park and spending the entire day in Batuu to continue using like my phone with the data pad to do all the extra stuff because that's what I'm interested in now. I want to live in this world.
We might have spent 6 hours there yesterday morning.
Yeah, you
Just a
can
bit,
spend
yeah.
6 hours.
Yeah.
and nowhere else.
Yeah, like we didn't go back out for a while. And some things, I mean, to get back to like the physical part of the land, like some things are getting interesting. So like we haven't talked a lot previously, you know, in terms of like, you know, the rumors about the budget cuts and certain choices that were made in order to leave certain things out, and whether or not maybe things are going to be roped back in. And there's been a lot of it's funny. There's just been so much talk about whether this has been a big success or a big failure. You know, like the attendance is down, but revenue is up. People say, but it's not a big line for the main ride, but the main ride can crank through 1,800 people an hour, and there's always some line. It's like, it's never that there's never a line, right? Which means that, well, something's going on somewhat properly. But, you know, it's such a different thing, and sometimes you get this sense that like they don't know what to do with it. But there was this wonderful moment yesterday where kind of about 9:45 in the morning, we were showing Zay around, and as we're leaving Ronto Roasters and we're about to like make our way down into the spaceport, someone comes up and says, "Hey guys, do you want to play a little sabacc?" And this was a cast member who said that, and so we were like, Curly and Spike or Empress Tetra, and he was like, I don't know, let's go find out. And you know, like, so we hustled some locals, and it was fantastic. And not something I was expecting to do. And I mean, from a certain point of view, they were demonstrating a game that was for sale over in the marketplace, right? You know, which is a good thing to be happening. Although it was no longer for sale because it had sold out the day before. Which is the other funny thing, is like they cannot keep the merchandise in stock. Like they're having horrible times keeping the merchandise in stock. But stuff like that is starting to occur. I mean, you've got a whole thing going on with all the character stuff that you've been kind of putting in, and friend groups who are feeding into that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm definitely considering running a Star Wars RPG afterwards, sort of later on, primarily set there, because, you know, like, what's fun is you can have your own headcanon about what your character did, all the Star Wars stuff that they did that you can't do, but then sort of go and still be the character. And everyone in my game can go there and see this place where it takes place. So that's definitely something I want to do. But yeah, I've just sort of built up a character. I just put together some pieces of costume, or not even costume, just boots and a jacket and stuff. The first day I went on June 1st, and you know, and man, it's like twice I've gone. It wasn't in the outfit. One day it was like 95 degrees. I was like, no. And that was the day I got my black crystal, though. Surprisingly.
Oh. Tempted. Well, you fell to the dark side, and next thing you know, you got that black crystal. Anthony, you made a gesture because you might have similar. things going on.
Yeah. I've been building props. I've been building like Batuuan like Disney friendly props. I mean, like I have my my little battery packs that I had on me. That I have my I made my data pad and my data pad case. But I made, see, it's nice. I made my data pad case, and I had, I had battery packs that I decorated, and I aged them up, and I did it, and I have them clipped on my thing, and I've got, my jacket, and it was even funny because the point Zay turned to me, and he was like, well, this is really cool. It's like really very Star Wars. I'm like, I wear this all the time. It's like this is part of my regular wardrobe, and I mean it's one of those things that like how much Star Wars has influenced my life is that I dress with a spacer's jacket regularly. That's I went and bought something because it worked that way.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to have something that's already lived in, and then people don't look at you funny when you're walking through with it. At least once you get on planet.
Really funny. I have said about the outfit I wear there. I'm like, so if I walk around like this, they'll be like, hey, that's a goth guy. If I hang a lightsaber on my belt, it's like that's a Jedi. And there's no other difference. But it's a subtle but important difference.
Yeah, they won't let me take the lightsaber into the goth club. I don't think yet. But on Halloween's coming. So
hey,
believe it or not, for all you goths out there who like Star Wars, if you go to Bar Sinister on certain nights, they do Star Wars nights.
Yeah, that's true.
They do encourage it. So I'm just saying, Noah.
No, I know. I'm aware. I'm aware of the ways of both of my peoples.
It's kind of non sequitur. I wanted to back up a minute.
Us non sequiturs.
Well, non sequitur. Back to Crash of Fate.
Okay. Yes, please.
Kind of back up a little bit. Get on the book thing. One of the things.
Nominally, what we're supposed to be talking about. Yes.
Yeah. So. Well, yeah. But tying into what we were saying earlier about like how it feels like it's the amusement park version of Batuu. It's supposed to be a thing. It's one of the weird things that I always noted with expanded universe, both in the new expanded universe and the current one, is that headcanon of when events take place and where events take place are slightly shifted, almost like they are from a certain point of view. And the thing is, Black Spire, what Delilah Dawson does is. It very much is, and I think you dropped a thing about that yesterday, Noah, when we were talking. It's kind of like and here's what the best drinks at Oga's are to have, and here's what this thing is. It was like a how-to or a Atlas guide to to Batuu.
Yeah, rough guide to BSO.
BSO. But A Crash of Fate, I found it was there's that weird discongruity between the two books because having gone there, having done the opposite way, gone there first and then read Black Spire, everything kind of, it's a little bit more spread out in the book, but things are where they're supposed to be,
right.
In the real world. But Crash of Fate, it's kind of like, you get the sense that BSO is a lot bigger and things are a lot more spread out than they are in the other book. And
like Delilah seems to ride this line where it's like, oh, you could imagine it's bigger, but he could also imagine that everything is right where it is in the park, right? Like it's like, well, maybe Savi's isn't next door to Doc's, but it could be. She never says that it isn't. Right. that sort of feeling, but like the outskirts start to feel like Smuggler's Row starts to feel like it's a lot bigger, and like there's
on one of those back corners, where you always want to dig in, but you can't go because it's cast only.
Yeah,
but
they got the good snacks back there. That's the world. There's not. We've determined yesterday there's not enough snacks in Galaxy's Edge. This is the major problem. Needs more snacks. I am not eating the weird popcorn. I'm sorry. I know it's cheap for them to make, but I want bow myself. I want there to be.
But we found out where it's grown, though. That's the cool thing. It's like we know where the popcorn's grown. I mean, that's it. I mean, Crash of Fate, while not the stronger of the two books, is very much. There's a lot of things that are filled in about Batuu and the world and why people choose to stay there and why it's important to not just the characters in the book, but why it's important to the larger galaxy. Like this weird little world where it's managed to be, it fills the gap of losing our smuggler planet, like in the original Express. It's like we had a planet for that. It was in video games, it was all this stuff, and it kind of disappeared when we switched to the new universe. So it kind of backfills that need. And because you need to have that place it's a wild place, and we know every place at this point in the current universe. Like we've been to all the big planets. We know that there's rules that are already set up for even Jakku. So it's nice to have a place where if we want to build stuff in the future, we can. If you want to backfill in the past we can, and they've set it up very nicely that, you know, there's throwaway lines even in Solo, you know, where those droid, looks at him, it's like, it's like, you couldn't even make the Black Spire without me. How do you think you're gonna make it?
Yeah.
Like it's the so.
And Doc Ondar was on Dryden Voss's ship too. Yeah,
That's right, Doc.
Oh, Doc
Dryden
is?
Voss's ship.
They said his name. She's like, Doc, like, take care of. They tell Kira to make sure Doc Ondar's taken care of. Yeah, I don't think they show him.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
I gotta. Well, it gives me a reason to rewatch Solo. Let me
Cookie's, even Cookie's in there, and like she's in the castle. She's in the Rise of the Jedi. Not Rise. Sorry, brain is all over the place. I'm off planet again.
In Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, yeah. So like, he's the cook that's at Hangar 7 is, according to the books, was in the castle. Like
was Maz Kanata's cook.
Maz's cook, yeah. And that's a great way to tie in the world with characters that we know without them actually appearing, but it keeps us there, it keeps us tied in. So I mean that's cool.
I mean, what's been interesting about the publishing pattern for Lucas for the past couple of years has been everything's always been a big kind of run up to one of the films. So there's like a little burst, and we're coming up towards the end here, so we're gonna wrap relatively soon. But there's always been this burst, and this feels like the kind of the run up to a film, right? So it's like the adult novel, the YA novel, some junior novels. Boom, here we go. Now the film is the theme park land, and yet. Would you guys want more stories on Batuu? Would you want more? And there is this kind of weird, question of, well, there's how's it going to fit in with the movies and yada yada. But would you want to read? Would you want to read and see more set here, or was this a sufficient lore dump / passing of the baton? Maybe Jeff, let's start with you since you started with reading Batuu before being there.
I'm gonna say yes and no. Yes, if it's set in an era beyond Rise of Skywalker, mostly because if they're gonna do something presently, I want it to actually happen in Batuu. I really want to see them do something in the future very similar to Ghost Town Alive at Knott's Berry Farm. I would love for that kind of thing, and I think the land is kind of set up for something like that, and hopefully when budgets are not cut anymore, we can have something like that. I think that'd be great. So yes, I definitely want to see more stories set on Batuu, but I want to live them also.
Emmett?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but I agree. I was recently noticing, I very much enjoy the new Thrawn books, but when in the Legend stuff, that was post Jedi, and he could do whatever he wanted. And at this point, where Thrawn, pre the original trilogy, he's dealing with space Minox and pirates. It's cool, but we know that he can't do too much of relevance, because if we had, we would have heard about it. So yes, I feel like if we can get some more stories, post Rise of Skywalker, that they could have sort of more relevance beyond just the land, something of actual importance in a broader sense. I'm curious, I don't even know if the Resistance don't have a base. I don't know where their base is. They have a base on Batuu. Do you think there's any chance that it will all pop up in the movie?
Oh, in the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. I mean, it's so interesting because when they first brought up Galaxy's Edge, they said, that it was going to be a planet our heroes had never been to, and you were going to get to live your own story there. And then, what we wind up with, I mean, Rey and Chewie are walking around, and then Supreme Leader Ren shows up, and there's got to be a lot of effort put to making sure that they don't fight each other or something. Hey, let's just end the story early. So it's kind of a strange thing. I don't think we're going to see. I think we may get a reference, kind of like in Solo.
Yeah. Most likely.
One thing that we do know is that the TIE Epsilon, which is the kind of gunship that's hanging out in Docky Bay 9, that was originally from Colin Trevorrow's version of Episode 9.
Yeah.
So that's a, scrapped, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like it's a retired design at this point. Something that isn't going to show up in the movie. It's the only part of that version of that film that exists or ever will exist. And it's like, but I'll rotate out to Anthony, and I want to get your take on whether you want to see some more material, some stories told in Batuu. Official stories told in Batuu.
Like, well, one, like I'm totally in with Jeff that like Ghost Town Live is a really great model for them to build off, and like land set up, and the fact that we had somebody who was like come play Sabak with us, and it was like that can be everywhere. And people are always complaining, like one of the common complaints that I hear is that there's not enough for kids to do. Well, it's like, can you take this to so and so shop? Can you take this over someplace? It becomes something that builds in the world.
Yeah, your kids love Ghost Town Alive. I think we should qualify that. For those who don't know, Ghost Town Alive is a seasonal thing at Knott's during the summer where they take the Calico Ghost Town, which is the oldest part of the park, and they have the actors there live out a day in the life of Calico, and there's an elaborate story. And
Founders Day, the best day of all.
Yeah.
Founders Day, yeah.
And year over year, the story advances. So it's always Founders Day, but it's always Founders Day a year later. And so things that had happened before have impact, and it's wonderful. And there's so much stuff for kids to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a, if they want to bite from something, that's a great model for them to bite from. And especially since you already have something that's already in place with the Datapad game. That's something you could easily incorporate that into to the real world.
For sure.
And so that's a great easy cheap thing that they could do. It's like, hey, let's add a couple of extra missions where you have to go get something and take it to Doc Ondar. I mean, we've got great examples in these books of people working, characters working, off-worlders working temporarily for Olga and for Doc Ondar and for people around BSO. That's a great way to tie the books to the land, to the game, and give some people do. And I think that's a great way to build stories without it having to be something official in the big world, in the larger universe. Personally, I'd like to see something in the larger universe. I mean, even if we just get like something in the scroll, it's like, having left their base at Batuu, I mean, that would, I can guarantee you if that happens, there's going to be like, thousands of people that will lose their crap in the middle, but we're not going to get that. But I mean, I'd love to have at least that, or it's like, Chew, we had an easier time with Batuu. It's like, it's like, I miss Batuu. I miss the popcorn of Batuu too. I mean, it's like something.
Oh my God. That's a little Spaceballs for me there.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's something that's I think really easy. I mean, like Star Wars shows up in Rebels. I mean, that's Star Tours shows up in Rebels.
Star Tours, yeah.
And Rex is in Rebels. So we could have a shout out. I mean, like I think that's something that is an easy thing to do that could be done or has been done. I don't know. I'm waiting to see. But yeah, I think have a platform that's already built. If they wanted to shoot something there, they could. I mean, with very little effort. And even if it's just like a short throwaway scene that takes place in Batuu, I think it'd be great. Addition to have part of what's now becoming our world. Part of the larger Star Wars world.
Yeah. Well, and there's always Disney Plus. There's always live action. So there's plenty of room. There's many story forms.
I mean, there's a lot of The Mandalorian could well go to Batuu. That would not at all be an unusual thing for him to do. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely shots in that
second season.
Yeah, well, there were shots. There's shots in the teaser trailer where I'm like, it's not too dissimilar, but I don't think it's going to be. I think they're still in expansion mode. I guess just to answer my own question, I probably should do it. I'm content for the land itself to keep on kind of rolling out the story. I'd be a little wary if there was too much done to kind of make it its own line of everything. Like the occasional drop or maybe stuff that is exclusive to the parks would kind of like make a degree of sense to me. That being said, I think most of that stems from my questions around just how locked are they into things with the Rise of Resistance ride, because they've taken this gamble of it's taking place at this very specific time. and you know, to treat it like Star Tours and just be like, okay, well, we're just going to reskin this now and like put a new video in, it'll be fine. You know, stops making it a living part of the Star Wars galaxy and starts making it be this, you know, recreation. And right now, for the moment we're in, even things like, you know, the fact that there isn't music everywhere, that it's just, it feels like this is a real place. For however long that can last, I hope that feeling is held on to by whatever means necessary. So,
agreed.
All right, gentlemen, anything else before I shut the stream down and allow us to go about our sad, mundane lives?
I mean, last thing I'll say is, who knows if it's still the case, but you know, one point I was talking to a cast member just for a while outside of Savi's about the wishing tree, and you know, had she made a wish and this and that, and then eventually she reached into her bag and pulled out a strip of cloth and was like, "Would you like to make a wish?" And I was like, "Yes." And like, so, you know, this is where I'm like, you know, you go and engage. Like, you know, some people will kind of shrug at you, but some people will not, and will kind of reward you for you know, playing in the world.
Yeah.
So,
and that's a beautiful moment and a nice note to end on. Gentlemen, everyone knows where they can find Anthony and me. That's over at noproscenium.com. Where can we find you, Jeff?
You can go to horrorbuzz.com. I am all over there, and I am at Jeff Heimbuch on all forms of social media.
And you also, there's another thing you do. It's plug time. Plug away.
Oh, yeah. You can also listen to Return Home, a fictionalized podcast that I've been doing for 4 years, and some other shows that will be coming out soon from iHeartRadio.
All right. Oh, wow. Cool. On iHeartRadio. Nice. All right, man. We got to talk, man.
I'll tell you about that.
Yeah, you will. Off the air. Emmett, how about you?
yeah, same deal. I'm Emmett Furey everywhere. So Twitter and emmettfury.com is my website. That's when look at various projects I've worked on. You can see it there. That's pretty much it. Yeah, Emmett Furey.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for yakking about Batuu. Stick around for a moment. I'm gonna turn the stream off and we'll say our off-screen goodbyes. And here we go in 3, 2, 1. The stream is ending.
Rising Moons.
Oh gosh, yes, Rising Moons. Till the Spire. Well, I should have started with Rising Moons. We had technical things, so till the Spire, everyone.
To the Spire.